Good morning.
Would that be the first tip? Get your calendars synced if you've got direct debits?
Oh, for sure, absolutely. The old late payment fee for a non-existent late payment can be very easily fixed with a sync of calendars for sure.
See, because that sort of thing, if you're perpetually late though, is it, a black mark against you or just simply a mistake like that? Could that cause issues for me if I wanted to borrow?
I mean, it would have to be a
serial offender.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, once or twice, not going to be that much of an issue. It's probably going to cost you more in late fees than anything else and rather be problematic. But you'd have to be continuously late every month, and I have to ring you and say, hey, what are we doing here?
Well, we can't poo-poo everything, Chris, all of the time. So walk us through then the advantages of buy now, pay later. I've touched on a few. The fact you don't have to have cash in your pocket at the time you buy something.
Oh, look, I think we should just refer to it from now on as BNPL.
Oh, I know, right? BNPL, yeah.
So buy now, pay later essentially is for purchase of X amount divided by 4 payments. We see it work in that sort of under $500 range on, purchases from anything, usually from like sort of big box stuff, whether it be, a couch or a TV or something like that, something that's needed in the household. Where we see it and where lenders see it problematic is where it's used for living expenses, which is something that they're cracking down on at the moment. And I think there'll be further movement in that over the next 12 months. So would recommend for big box purchases needed for the household or something actually needed there and then, and it's outside the normal sort of budget time frame. Would not recommend for living expenses, utility bills, etc.
Even though you talk about, as an example, you mentioned a couch, it is really hard when you've got access to that buy now, pay later, or buy now, pay no interest, whatever the catch may be, or the marketing may be, that you don't think there's a couch, we'll have that. Oh, and look at that buffet. Yeah, look, we might throw that in too. And before long, your budget's out the window.
Yeah. That's certainly a tactic of some in the retail big box sector for sure. And I think it's a matter of going in there with a list, in the same way that you set a maximum price when you're buying a car, a house, or something like that. It's a little bit of financial discipline, and sort of being able to keep your eyes on what you're actually buying rather than all the shiny stuff that goes around it or with it.
Speaking of borrowing capacity, is it assessed all of the time with these services?
BNPL is taken into consideration. Shows on a credit report, and it's taken into consideration in a couple of different formulas depending on the lender. But yeah, it's seen as an open liability that may be spent at any time. So where there's larger limits sort of over, and it affects someone's borrowing capacity, our recommendation is always to have a conversation with the customer around that, and perhaps just to close it off for the period of 6 to 12 months while home lending is sorted out. And then after that, if it still sticks within the disposable income budget, then, we don't see an issue with it being reopened or another application being done.
And it's the same with credit cards too, isn't it? You might have a credit card with a $20,000 limit, but you may only use $2,000 of that, and you're very disciplined at paying it off. But when you apply for a loan, the bank takes into account that $20,000 you have access to, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so the difference between having a $20,000 card and a $2,000 card, or even a $4,000 limit, if you only spend $2,000, can sometimes be the difference between, deal and no deal in terms of buying a home.
Now, we touched on one of the cons, and that is getting your calendar right if you're direct debiting with scheduled payments, whether they be for Afterpay, Uncle Harvey, or whoever it might be. But how else do you avoid being stung?
Look, I think that, there are enough sort of budgeting apps around at the moment, with some new ones being in development at the moment in line with the new open banking rules and regs that basically sort of link into your everyday banking and have predictive behaviours around the sort of the AI space. Not from a negative view, it will actually say, hey, do you remember that going by out reading your calendar and your bank statement, just remember there's a utility bill on blah, blah, and it'll flash up on your phone. So I think using those type budgeting, those budgeting apps or the old school calendar note, or note on the fridge for that matter, plenty of customers that use those too, can really help in trying to avoid those late fees and meet the on-time repayments.
All right, Chris, always great to chat with you, and you always give us some food for thought. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Kim. Really appreciate the opportunity.